Come with us back to California, 1969, where free love and mind-expanding drugs were very much a part of campus life. For the students at the heart of this story, however, the summer of love turned into a nightmare when they ran into a hippie guru and his pocket full of psychedelics. Meet Len Pilar.
There was me, and there was Harold, and there was Mike. We all dug the same music, and we all had the same values. We were all into the counterculture back then.
It was the war, it was drugs, it was free love, it was music, it was a little bit of everything, but we were looking for a little guidance, perhaps.
Len, Harold, and Mike find guidance in the form of underground guru Rudy Heisman.
We met this gentleman named Heisman. He was a little older than us.
We were like his disciples or something. I mean, he was almost a guru to us. He was very charismatic, and whatever he said, he struck a chord with us. Man.
It is your fault. It isn't God's fault. You mind if I take some of your weed?
No, go ahead.
He was into drugs. He got us hooked up with some pretty heavy powders and potions in those days. And he'd use all our drugs. Of course, we were paying for them. He was using them.
You want to go back to my place?
He actually used to hit on our girlfriends, if I remember. But he was a legend in the underground, and we were pretty impressed with him. So we followed him around and listened to his preachings.
May 17th, 1969. Our young hippies follow Heisman to a remote woodland where he's promised them their greatest trip ever. This would be a whole new chemical high, different from anything they'd ever tried before, liquid LSD.
I mean, we'd done blotters, we'd done acid on paper, and that was okay, but this stuff was just, it was heavy, heavy.
Heisman administers drop after drop after drop of liquid LSD to the boys, a massive dose miscalculation with potentially disastrous results. Dr. Brian Goldman gives us his perspective on the mind-altering drug LSD.
The effect of LSD is to hit certain receptors in your body, serotonin receptors, which affect your ability to draw correct conclusions from ordinary stimuli. The other thing that LSD does is it can hit dopamine receptors, the pleasure receptors in the brain. So they can induce a tremendous sense of euphoria. So you might be induced to do things because you're in a state of exalted happiness or pleasure, and you're apt to agree with the suggestions that are put forth when you're in that mood because you're feeling so good.
By now, they're such slaves to the drug and slaves to Heisman. It's bad timing. Their guru is about to plant an idea in their susceptible minds that would change their lives forever.
The grass was green, the sky was blue. Heisman was making more sense than he ever made.
You're going to see heaven here.
He was our savior. He said he was our savior. He was our savior.
He started saying things like, look at the sun, the light of the sun will cleanse your mind. Look into the sun.
Look at the sun.
With their thinking all mixed up by the mind-bending drugs and under the hypnotic trance of Heisman, the boys do as they are told and begin staring directly into the sun. The drugs, combined with the blinding light, holds them in a euphoric, hypnotic trance. As a result, they are unaware of the damage the sun's ultraviolet rays are doing to their retinas.
We actually have a name for this. It's called solar retinopathy. What's happening with solar retinopathy is that ultraviolet light is striking the macula. It's causing inflammation or swelling there. And yes, you can end up with a hole in the macula. Sometimes the damage can be permanent.
And for our young men, the damage is permanent.
The pain was intense. I mean, it was like daggers in my eyes. I remember we woke up in the hospital.
At first I couldn't see much. I got a little bit of my vision back, but
they had bandages on me for the first few weeks. And then they took the bandages off, and I couldn't see. I couldn't see a thing.
The third blinded man, Mike Campbell, declined to be interviewed. He wishes to put this event behind him. As for Rudy Heisman, he was last heard of in Toronto, Canada in 1976.
We were young, we were naive, and looking back on the whole thing, we were, I think probably stupid describes what we were back then, but three of us together, we're the three blind mice now.
As far as drug stories go, this was no run-of-the-mill bad trip. But is it true? Find out for sure later in the show. Let's begin with those acid-blind hippies. The story appeared in the Los Angeles Times in January 1968. It then spread all over the country, even making Time magazine. But even then, it wasn't true. LSD can't override the self-preservation instinct preventing someone to force their eyes to stay open long enough to burn out their retinas. But staring at the sun can cause permanent damage to the eye. It's most often reported when people think it's safest, during a solar eclipse. But make no mistake, staring at the sun can permanently damage your eyes, so don't try it.